Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session from Google Digital Garage. My name is Chummy, and I'll explain something about myself in a few moments' time, but welcome to all of you there. And today's session is Find Your Balance with Technology. Um, as I set up the stage right now, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping and that kind of stuff to start off with, and I'm welcoming everybody on board. So, as I said, my name is Chummy. I'm one of the Google trainers, coaches that offer this kind of webinar service. Along with me, I've got Mohammed, who's here to help me. He's fantastic. He's also a coach and a trainer within Google Digital Garage. His name will appear with a blue spanner in the chat box, and I really recommend that you communicate with us, because particularly for this session, it makes a difference when people are engaged with our conversation. So with a couple of things to cover that, if you haven't already signed in, you need to sign into your YouTube account to enable you to start writing in the chat box, and then of course sharing some of your thoughts and that kind of thing. So one of the things that you can do is, if you haven't already done so, log into your YouTube account. If you don't have a YouTube account, you can create one quite easily. It's on the top right of your screen. And while I'm doing the introduction, you can quickly log into that. A couple of other things. If my voice is not coming clear enough, or if the video is a bit shaky, you can refresh your page, and then that will enable you to have the newest version of that on your browser. So two very quick things. Please do sign in to the chat box, and please communicate with myself and Mohammed. He will be monitoring the chat box and answering some of your questions and reflecting back on the kind of stuff that we can be talking about. But of course, it gives me a chance to be more reactive and engaging with the people out there that's listening to this. The Google Digital Garage offers loads of stuff online in terms of virtual training, as well as other broader offerings of courses. And if you'd like to, you can check out further things that are coming up in the links below, as they say on webinar world, below where I appear. And Mohammed's just typed in, of course, the URL for us to follow. So today, I'm going to be talking about find your balance with technology. And this is finding a balance with technology that feels right for you, because everybody's different, and all the kind of stuff that we do online, and how much time we spend online, and how you could better make use of the time you have, because time is precious, and how you feel about it is what we're going to discuss and explore today. So as I start off, I'd like you to please introduce yourself if you've already logged in, or just say hello to myself and Mohammed into the chat box. So perhaps your name and where you're joining us from, just to let us know where you are and what kind of things are well, the kind of things we're going to discuss, but the kind of things that you might be interested in, type it into the chat box. So as I go on, I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to have some reflection. So please have a piece of paper and a pen or a digital device to take some notes on or with. And at the same time, please feel free to type in whatever your thoughts are, kind of your ideas, your reflections into the chat box. It makes a difference to us, because then we realize, or we know, that you're out there and you're engaging with us. As I go on, as I said, I'll be asking loads of questions, getting you to think about the stuff that we're going to be talking through and exploring. But as I start off, I'm going to break this presentation into four main areas, this webinar. And that is to find out what digital well-being is, because it's really important. Well, hey, you got Yusuf from Egypt. Thank you very much, Yusuf. Welcome. Keep them coming, people. Any other people that want to say hello to us, please say hello, because it makes a difference. You can see the smile on my face. We're going to explore these four main areas, and I'm going to go into detail, of course, but discover and explore what digital well-being is, because some of you may know what well-being is, and some of you may not know it. So we're going to go through that. The good thing for you is, if it is a good thing, is that I specialize in digital well-being as well as digital mindfulness. This is the kind of thing that's very close to my heart. Myself and Mohammed, we're both very experienced digital marketers, as well as digital on the digital landscape. This brings together humans and technology. So we're going to talk about things like a balance, getting the right balance for you with technology and how you use technology and optimize that. And then we're going to talk about tips and tools to achieve a better kind of balance with technology, what you're doing. Oh, and John's joined us too, so welcome, welcome, welcome. And well, you're interested in living that kind of balance of your life, so that's brilliant. Having thought about tips and tools for achieving a better balance with technology, we're going to go on to developing your behavior, your habits around using technology. So these are the kind of things that we're going to go through. But even before I start, I'd like you to ask one question for me, please. I've got this thing in front of me. You might recognize it. What would you call what I'm holding up in front of the camera? It's not a trick question, but I'm just asking you, what would you call what I've got in front of me or in front of you? What would you call this? Come on, people, don't feel shy. If you have a chance, just type in your response to the question I've asked. I've just held up well, I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm asking you to tell me, what would you call one of these things here that I'm holding in front of the camera? Don't feel shy. We've got a few moments together. Some people, of course, well, the obvious answer is something like, yes, a smartphone or a mobile phone or a cell phone, depending on which region you're joining us from. And other people might call it a supercomputer, a mobile computer, a small kind of connectivity a device, connected device, all those kind of things. I'd like you to think about this concept. Think of what I just held up as a remote control for life. And before you start laughing at me at the screen and things, it's actually not me that came up with that concept. It was an academic. But you've got something in your palm, in your pocket, in your bag, where it is, something that will affect the way that you do anything, everything, your behavior. It's a remote control for life. We're going to go through the different aspects of this as we explore these ideas. But, from making a telephone call, do people still use that to make a phone call? Who knows? Through to social media, as well as banking, health apps, watching videos. You've got tons of things that you do online with that remote control for life or your mobile phone. That's just one device we'll explore. Now, what I like to do is just bring to your mind and start thinking about a few things. What is digital well-being? Now, if you want to start typing some answers into the chat box or your ideas, please go ahead. But we're going to be exploring this. But I also like to make this as engaging as possible. So if you've got any ideas, think about what digital well-being is, because that's kind of the area that we're going to cover and make it meaningful to you. People may know about well-being, both mental as well as physical and all those kind of aspects. But digital well-being is really important to consider in terms of what we're doing with technology. And the fact that I just started off by saying we've got a remote control for life, that is to say that we're always using technology and how often we use technology and what we use technology for. So if we go through a definition, just so that we're looking at this from the same point of view as we go through this. And don't forget, please use the chat to share your ideas or thoughts as you're having them. Digital well-being is the state of being comfortable and also content with how much technology fits around your life. So we're thinking about what technology is and how you use technology. But the important thing is this: that is different for everybody. We're all unique human beings. And as such, what may be useful for me may not be useful for somebody else. But the important thing is to be aware that we're all individual human beings and think about your behavior. It's a result of feeling aware and in control with technology. That is to say, be mindful, and we're going to discover kind of what these concepts are as we go through this webinar. But being aware, being mindful in the present moment, and what you do with technology and how you react with it, interact with it. Okay, so digital well-being, in essence, is about having a balanced relationship with technology. By that, what we're going to explore. And Yusuf just said, but we all get addicted to scrolling on TikTok, and we're gonna explore that addiction and all those ideas and scrolling, Yusuf, in a few moments' time. But the important thing is getting the right balance and moving from intentional and unintentional use is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. So Do you do it because you got into a habit, as you said, addicted to it, or can you stop that by being aware of your actions? And you know what? The more in control we are of devices and technology that we own, the easier and the more positive you feel about using that, as opposed to, oh man, it's taken up so much of my time and nothing's really happened with the time I've spent with it. So it's a relationship, it's a balance that you have with technology that we're going to explore in terms of digital well-being. So I'd like to ask a couple of things, and as I'm asking these questions or reflections, please write it down on a piece of paper or just type it into the chat box as we're going through this, because what I want to find out is your thoughts and not just me throwing my ideas at you, because it's really important for you to absorb the kind of stuff that we're talking about. It'll make a difference to the way that you behave and the way that you have that right balance. So the question I'm asking you is, what defines the right balance for you? What do you think that is? We're going to go through a few exercises in the next few moments where I ask you, and hopefully you start typing some answers into the chat box, but we're going to find out what balance is. And balance is one of the main goals of digital well-being. It's how we make use of technology that's available to us without it taking over us. So in terms of balance, what do you think balance is? Any ideas? You could tell that I'm trying to get as much information from you as possible. This is not just watching because it's a live session, live stream, and we're trying to encourage you to communicate with myself and Mohammed, who's eagerly waiting for your answers. Now, what I'd like you to do is, when you're thinking about the right balances, reflect upon your relationship with devices that you may have. And by devices here, of course, I'm thinking about mobile devices, your cell phone or your mobile phone, your tablets, your Chromebook, your laptop, and even your smart TV. And of course, Mohammed just typed in that TikTok does take a lot of your time. But I wanted to think about how much balance you use in terms of the time and the kind of benefits you got from it. Think about the last time you used one of your devices. How much time did you intend to spend on it, and how much time did you not intend to, so unintentionally, did you squander some of your precious time on it? If you want to put some ideas into the chat box, please do. But here we're thinking about how much time you spend and what kind of benefits you get from it. Not being in control by your phone or computer or anything that prevents you from enjoying your life. Good one, Jan. I don't know if you've read my notes or not. I'm joking about that, but that's the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about, certainly. So as we progress this, what I'd like you to do is just answer this question for me. So what do you use your device for? And here, if it helps, we can narrow it down for the last 24 hours or 48 hours. Think about the device, the use, things like smartphones, tablets, voice assists, where you get people to do things because you've just spoken into a microphone. But also think about what you've done with it. Did you spend a lot of time doing it? And what did you do that took hardly any time at all? Are you using a lot of your precious time in interacting with your devices? For example, what I did was sometimes I do my banking online with my phone. That takes a specific amount of time. I'm not scrolling. I'm going there for a purpose and doing something. Sometimes I use my phone, my smartphone for navigation. I put some information there and it takes me. Other times, and I never know the difference these days, people, between anti-social media and social media. I'm joking, of course, but sometimes on social media, you could be using a lot of your time. So thoughts about it. So instead of being a cheap alternative for those activities, Yusuf, oh yeah, I see. Going sightseeing, of course, yes. You can visualize things, certainly on, say, things like, before I go to any of my meetings and I'm route organizing, I look up Google Maps and I look up Street View and I visualize how to get there if it's tricky. So I've already, if I'm driving there, if I'm going to walk from a tube station or a railway station, I know where to go. So yeah, you can visualize that. I'd like to ask you this other question, because you know what? sometimes you have some good ideas, good ways of doing things, and technology adds value to your life. And from say feeling good, healthy, sociable, and inspired. Um, these these things that you can do with technology, for example, I don't know, fitness apps. Who's into fitness here, people? You might be using your applications on your phone to make you fitter, either mentally or physically. You could, of course, communicate with friends or family, not just across the road, but across the globe. Um, what do these things have in common when you have value to your life? So, from the banking part or the communication with people that are far away from you. Can you think of the things that may be going through your mind that adds value to your life? By value, what I mean is something that makes a positive difference. It doesn't drain you; it adds to you. Any examples of the kind of things that where technology could add value to your life? I've mentioned a few about the banking apps and the navigation apps. Any ideas from yourselves? You lot are going to be quiet. We've got to work hard to get you lot talking. So if you have some thoughts, please do put that into the chat box. If not, write it down and then just think about the reflections that you may have. If you think about the positive things that you have in common, think about the time of the day that you use these devices. What do you use these devices for? And you know what? What kind of positive outcomes do you get from these interactions? Are they purposeful? Are they intentional? Or do they just randomly appear? Most of the things that you do that use technology to add value, you've thought about it, it's intentional as opposed to unintentional. And you go about doing something to get a good result from it. Now, in terms of what does technology add there, when does technology add the least value to your life? Think about, I think, was it Jan or Yusuf already mentioned this before. Can you think of times when it doesn't benefit so much value or add value to your life, and it doesn't give you so much of a positive feeling? Can you name a few times, or can you think of the times when perhaps technology doesn't add that much value? Yes, of course. And sometimes, notifications are distracting when you're reading. Mindlessly scrolling through social media can be not so beneficial. And of course, playing long sessions on games, if you're a gamer, or watching tons and tons of, and don't get me wrong, I do this from time to time, binge watch a TV series. Again, think about, when do you do these procrastination? Yeah. When do you do these activities? And when do you think to yourself, that's actually taking a lot of my time away from something that I could be doing more in a more beneficial way? Again, the important thing is getting the right balance when you're thinking about using technology and using apps, tools, all those kind of resources that enable you to do things with value. So these are the kind of concepts that I want to try to build upon and get you to think about the things as we move forward. So in terms of technology and how kind of the value that could be added and the most kind of areas that can be useful for you are these four main areas. This is from an organization called the Pew Research Center. Pew is a non-partisan fact-finding fact tank. It informs public about issues, attitudes, and trends shaping the world. I'm sure Mohammed's going to put some more details in the chat box for those that want to discover more about the Pew Research Center. But in essence, here we're talking about four main areas where most value is added when technology is used. And I think this is the kind of stuff that we briefly talked about. And yeah, Jan, when stressed, mindless, yeah. But in terms of value, staying connected, using messaging services, SMS, text messaging, calls, videos, taking photos, that could add value. You can be sharing things with other people. And of course, things like what you're doing here and now, right now, self-improvement, reading books, listen to music, because sometimes music is calming. It helps your state of mind, that kind of thing. TV, movies. You could be watching a lovely movie. It could be a documentary. It could be some kind of fitness tool, or certainly mindfulness. And I'll talk about mindfulness a little bit later on. It could also be, as I said beforehand, in terms of documentaries and that kind of thing, gaining knowledge, education content, reading newspapers, magazines, and sports. You may have heard this phrase. You may have not, but you're going to certainly hear it in the next few seconds. Don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. There are some times when I'm watching something or hearing some person say something, and I've got my mobile device for life or remote control for life. I think to myself, I don't know what that phrase is, or I don't know what that word means in that context, or there's a new concept that I'm not familiar with. I'll quickly look it up, and that gives me some knowledge straight away. I don't have to. I don't need to remember everything all the time. In fact, there's nothing wrong with my memory. It's just my recall that I've got issues with these days. But that helps me to gain information, knowledge, and then deal with that situation, so I'm more informed. Of course, you can have productivity improvements through setting schedules, setting dates on your diary, organizing emails, your to-do list, and all that kind of stuff. So these are the kind of things that you can get value from technology. On the other hand, if you think about when technology might not be so good, is to conceptualize our negative behaviors and what may be taking our attention away or getting the balance not so right with what we're doing with technology. Technology can go wrong if we don't spend the right type of mindset, behavior, attitude towards it. So again, I'm trying to distinguish here between being intentional to unintentional behavior that we spend time and our effort on with technology. These are the kind of things that, can zap our energy away. So, activities where you may lose control over time and purpose while you're doing it, say on social media or YouTube or online gaming. You start off and you get distracted by some other event or to go further onto a different level on your game. And that starts eating up a lot of your time. And this shifts from experience a positive outcome to a negative outcome. So we're not intentional with our time. We spend more time than we wanted to and get distracted. I think somebody mentioned that word addictive. I'm not really necessarily thinking about that kind of strength of behavior, but if you're conscious, if you're aware of what you're doing, you could do something about it. There's other aspects of when technology can go wrong, is when it starts interfering or interacting with your daily consumption of the three main elements of your life: sleep, work, and play. So here we're talking about disrupting your sleep. As you lot probably realize, sleep is so vital to us human beings because it gives our brains a chance to slow down, rest, calm, start sorting out all the activities of the day. It also physiologically affects the way that we perform in terms of our bodies. But it's really important that, when you, just before you go to sleep, that you're not reading something that gets your attention, then your brain can't switch off. You can also think about the fact that, depending on what kind of setting you've got on your screen, the light itself can affect your eyes. Then the blue light keeps your brain active, and then you find it more difficult to go to sleep. So again, think about what's disrupting you, particularly in terms of sleep. And if your device, if you're reading something before you go to sleep, or you don't have your notifications turned off, so it's always active, that it'll disrupt your sleep. Before I go to sleep, I turn off my phone. I put it onto a setting that allows only my immediate family to get in touch with me, so I know that if there's an emergency in the middle of the night, I can react to it. And in itself, by me knowing that only a few people, limited amount of people, can get in touch with me, I'm happy to go to sleep because I know I'm not going to miss out on any emergency that may happen. So again, it's the use of that kind of technology and being aware of when it goes wrong. How many times, if you have children or if you have younger members of the family, or perhaps people tell you this, to put your phone away when you're eating and things like that, because, relationships, we are human beings. And, okay, technology is taking over majority of the kind of stuff that we do. But I find it a little bit disrespectful if somebody's always stuck to their phone all the time. And I'll talk about this kind of stuff a little bit later on, as I said. But you know what? Having a conversation with a human being is so, it's full of bliss, it's full of pleasure. And not to forget that by putting up barriers like your phone in front of your face, or you're always looking at notifications on different devices, that could again affect the way that you have relationships with other human beings. Now, with this in mind, as we progress on to the kind of things that we talked about, digital well-being, and then talking about the kind of the things that add value and things that may take that value away, things that may go wrong with using technology. I'd like you to just think about this statistic for a second. This is again some research that's been done. When I look at numbers, I don't really look at the number itself, but I think about the size, the magnitude, and if it's going up or down. I don't know if numbers can go sideways, but you know what I mean. So about a third of people, of adults across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, are concerned about the negative impacts on technology usage. And about, over half of the people that reported back, 52% of adults across the same region there, say that they would like help in changing or improving at least one technological behavior. That is to say, just going back onto, is it intentional use of that device and technology, or is it unintentional, and how we can change the way we do things, our behavior. The first thing is to be aware of what we're doing. And once we're aware of it, then we can do something about the behavior, i.e., that is to say, leading on to digital well-being, the part where we feel more balanced with how we use technology and how technology works for us, as opposed to being out of control and, oh man, I've got so many emails to respond to, I've got this notification coming in to me, I have to watch those videos because they're so important. Why? It's a question that we'll explore in a few moments' time. So with this in mind, I like to just refer to this graphic. Ideally, you will use that device in these kind of ways of thinking about it. So in control, that's when people want to feel that they're in control of their tech and not feel controlled by it. Feeling out of control reduces the sense of well-being and creates stress. That leads to purposeful or purposefulness, which is basically, what is the purpose? Having a key is the purpose. People aspire to use more intentionally rather than simply spending time on the technology. So if you're going to go, for example, onto social media and you think to yourself, well, I'll just find out what's happening, you might get dragged into scrolling across loads and loads of pages, liking or following or all that kind of stuff. Is that really useful for you at that time? Could you be using that time to for a different purpose? Is the fact that you're engaging with time-consuming behavior preventing you from being positive about the kind of stuff that you have to do? Is that causing you stress? And the important thing here is thinking about the net positive impact. That's to say, people who aim for benefits to outweigh the negative rather than banning or removing everything potentially negative. As I said, there are certain applications that I use that are really, really useful. And I think to myself, yeah, this is good. I get some information. So for example, on a social media platform like LinkedIn, I get lots of new ways of thinking about the kind of landscapes that I work on. But at the same time, I'm conscious when I do this because I'm thinking about my behavior. I don't want to be dragged into some kind of other conversation that may make me think about something in a negative way, or that person's showing off about this activity, or, oh, I think I really need to know about this subject matter area when it might not be so relevant. So again, think about your net positive impact is important. And you don't have to ban all the kind of things or think to yourself, I'm not going to ever use any of the applications again. It's how you use that and how beneficial, how much value that adds to your life. So different than texting. Yusuf, I'm just following your remark. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'm sure Mohammed's on the case. But if not, I'll come back to that in a few moments' time. There's plenty of opportunity to ask questions in between the sections too. So here we're thinking about ideally your device, you should use it in these kind of ways to be in control, be purposeful, have an intention as opposed to unintentionally, unconsciously working things out, and then think about the net positive impact. That, of course, leads on to things like this. What I'd like you to do is, again, if you want, you can write it down in the chat box, but certainly think about this and write it down on your piece of paper if you've got that handy to yourself or that device you're writing on. We're thinking about writing down some goals that will help you to achieve that right balance. So these are kind of three areas that you could be thinking about in terms of the time that you want to spend with your family. That might want to be, well, a thing that you want to think about, increase. Do you want to be better at work? How do you perform all the tasks that you have to do at work with the kind of applications and the technology that's available to you? Are there things that you can use to create shortcuts? And of course, feeling less scattered. How often do you feel to yourself, oh man, I've got so many things to do. Where do I start? What do I do? How can you control all of that? So what I'd like you to do is just look back at anything if you have written, and then go through and just think about the intention that you have in terms of, if you want to spend more time with the family, what can you do? Is it as simple as just, arranging your schedule and then making sure that when you're with people, you put your phone away, that kind of stuff? Or is it more kind of, you want to be doing more things with your work, efficiency, increasing your productivity, scheduling systems and planning application, project management applications, that may come in handy. But the important thing here is think about the goals that you have. And by having a goal doesn't mean that you have to set a path to it, just that kind of idea about what you want to do to help you achieve that right balance as we spoke about. Okay, so whilst we're thinking about this, people, just have a look at this. We've got some things to talk about in the next section, but what I like to do is just giving you a chance to ask any questions for myself or Mohammed if you wish. But if you have the chance, particularly before the end of the session, if you use this URL, Google, GOO.G Digital Garage feedback, and just provide some feedback to us. And I'll put this slide up a few times before the end, but if you could note that down, I'm sure Mohammed will put that into the chat before the end, but just to give us some feedback along the way. But so far, what we've discussed is things around what digital well-being could be all about the value of technology, and also the kind of things that may go wrong if we overindulge or not intentionally using the technology to help us to do a better thing that we want to do. And that thing could be defined as all of the stuff that we talked about, being close to your family, productivity, as well as just being at peace with yourself. Any of those kind of ideas. Keep the comments coming, people. Just letting you know, we're going to keep the comments coming if you wish. But as I move on, we're going to talk about kind of tips and tools for achieving a better balance with technology. Again, I'm gonna ask you to share some of your thoughts if you wish, but certainly if you have the piece of paper or a digital device, note this down so it'll help you after this session, because these kind of things, I feel that well, you get on a webinar and you go, oh, that's a really good idea, but you put it away and you may not put it into practice. And the important thing about well-being, digital well-being, digital mindfulness is once you're aware of the situation, it's up to you to go and do something about it. It's not like a 5-point plan and you stick to that 5-point plan and it's going to work. You've got to put into action all the kind of ideas that we're discussing or exploring to make that happen. So a couple of things I want to talk to you about. This is like how our brains work, what we can do to, once we're aware of the way we're thinking about things, what we can do to adjust our behavior or adopt ideas around changing our behavior. Our brains are, in essence, memory optimizing machines. Sounds good. Hey! What does that mean? In essence, in actuality, what it means is that our brains use established patterns instead of forging new ones to shortcut things. So if you're familiar with doing something, We do it so that we do it without thinking about it, because we've learned from our past experience and neuro circuits that if you do something, we can do it faster if you're not actually consciously thinking about it, which is good things as well as bad things. So with that in mind, just think about the kind of things that we do with our brains that we, well, make shortcuts. So this graphic here, I'm going to explain this to you, but in essence, what we're talking about is that we have a thought, we do something about it, or we take a shortcut and then we do it again. But if that shortcut is useful, then I'm at high school, I'm studying, I use digital time, I use it. That's good, Yusuf. Back to this graphic for a second. So we have a thought, we do something about it, and then we could either do it really, really quickly because it's automated in terms of our way of thinking about it, or we think about it more deeply and we think to ourselves, that's not such a good idea. We should not do it just because we're automatically thinking about it. So this whole idea is called holistic thinking. And Mohammed will type in that phrase in case you want to know or do some more research on it. It allows people to problem solve and make judgments quickly and effectively. And this is kind of rule of thumb strategy, shorten decision-making time and allowing people to function without constantly stopping to think about their course of action. For example, it could be like buttering a piece of bread in the morning. You don't actually think about putting the bread into the toaster, getting the toaster out, getting the batter out from the fridge or margarine and putting it. It comes naturally. And of course, other examples are like choosing some socks for the day. I don't know about you, but I don't think you go, oh, what day is it today? I think I'll go for the pink one. You just pick out a pair of socks and put it on. Or perhaps even brushing your teeth in the morning. If you stop to think about each and every step, turn the water on, rinse the toothbrush, put some toothpaste in the brush, go from the left hand side, all these processes are automatic. And I suppose another way of thinking about this, if you're thinking about neurology and neuroscience and that kind of stuff, this kind of thing is called cognitive laziness and means that the brain will make decisions that require the least amount of effort. And in many instances, these shortcuts are a great way to do our day-to-day activities. It allows us to solve problems much faster because we're used to the pattern and we get onto it. But of course, this is the thing that we want to highlight with this graphic here, particularly people, is that this can also affect kind of bad habits too. So sometimes you pick up your phone and you're so used to going on to, I don't know, your social media profiles and find out what people are saying because it's really important to find out what people are saying. Or you go onto your emails to find out if you're missing something. You get into a habit where it might be eating up a lot of your time. So this slide here talks about being aware of your mental shortcuts, not just like the stuff that I talked about in everyday life, like brushing your teeth. But once you get your telephone out or your mobile phone out, your cell phone or your remote control for life or any of the other devices you may be using, think about the first things that you're doing. And you could be consciously thinking about or having intention of how you use those apps. Should you be using those apps? Could you just back up a little bit and not worry about things that aren't so important for you? But you can make a difference to the behavior that you take, you adopt to react with, interact with technology. So you've got some kind of, notification. Have you got a shortcut for that notification? Do you go straight to that app, or you think about replying straight away? What is the action that you take? And you can then think about, am I going to be affected by that stimulus? Do I need to have those notifications turned on? Is that one way of saving some kind of time that you dedicate to how much time you spend on your phone, mobile phone, smartphone? Right. We're going to go into these 4 areas in detail. And don't forget, people, type away any of your ideas. But I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd really love to have your answer to this, because I'm bringing in all ideas around digital well-being and how you can use technology to get in the right balance and things like that. We're going to go through creating routines, being more in charge of what you're doing, in control, and then, of course, creating some screen time. And of course, more focus at work. But I'd like to ask you 3 questions. And if you can answer those questions in the chat box, that'd be brilliant. If not, just think about it. The 3 questions I'd like to ask you is, What is the most important time? What is the most important time? Second question I'd like to ask you is, what is the most important person? Or who is the most important person? And the third question I'd like to ask you is, what is the most important thing to do? What is the most important thing to do? So I'll repeat those questions. And since I've got no answers in the chat box, I'll explain why I asked those questions. The questions I asked was, what is the most important time? What is, or who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do? Now, in terms of digital well-being, or certainly digital mindfulness, and this is where I'm trying to go with this, thinking about the tips and tools, bringing it all together. It's really important. Many people have heard the word mindful or the phrase mindfulness, and everybody's into mindfulness, or some people are into mindfulness. What does it all mean? Well, to me, what mindfulness is being in the present moment, in the here and now, and being aware of the situation to hand. So when we're talking about what is the most important time, it's now. Because the past is gone. You can't do anything about the past, and the future hasn't happened. You're creating the future. It's right now. And then what's the most important person? Again, thinking about what the subject matter here, and I understand what you mean, Jan, about your wife and kids, but think about this, what I'm talking about, being here in the present moment now. The most important person is the person in front of me, because other people aren't there. The person in front of me is important because I'm using the time to do something in the present moment. That's what creates well-being, the satisfaction and the fulfillment of actually engaging with that person. And what is the most important thing to do? That is to care, to do something that's engaging and that's important for that person that's in front of me at that present moment. That could be 300 people. Streaming across 300 people. It could be the person that you're just having that business meeting with, but that's the kind of thing to think about. So when you're creating good routines, or want to be in control, or want to create some space for screen time, or be more focused at work, think about where you are in time and space, without sounding too philosophical, but the people that are in front of you, and of course, what you want to do. So with that in mind, we're just talking about these kind of things. Creating routines, that's habits that you can form, can be really, really useful in terms of how you deal with things. So understanding how you use technology and how that fits around you is really important. There's kind of two main areas around habits. There's the habit cycle, as some people may call it, and that's usually triggered by boredom. When you get bored on your lunch break, for example, and you go onto your smartphone in the hope of finding something to entertain you. Perhaps sometimes you get gradually into a habit of, at lunchtime, I'm going to go on the phone and find out what people are talking about on social media or the news or whatever. And of course, what happens here is that you're using your phone almost in an absent-minded way, as opposed to a mindful way. You're just getting on there because you've formed a habit and you carry on doing it. The second kind of thing that may form a habit is obligation cycle. And this is a little bit more complicated than the kind of habit cycle. That's to say that, for example, you might think to yourself, if I turn my phone off and my friends send me texts and I don't receive my texts, and he or she looks at my Instagram and I'm not responding, or whatever live inactive kind of notifications that you got, and they think that I'm ignoring them. Oh man, I don't want to upset my friends and family. And sometimes you start thinking to yourself that you need to respond quickly, respond straight away, be online all the time. So again, if you think to yourself, well, what can you do to kind of stop that from being a pressure on yourself, so you get the right balance? And we're going to explore kind of ideas around how you can do this. But again, be aware of the habits that you got in terms of the way that you use your technology. You could also track and limit your usage of your applications. You probably know many applications that look at your battery usage, your application usage, and you could have on your mobile device the time you spent on each application, what you spent doing, all that kind of stuff. You could also make a note on a piece of paper and a pen. You know, yesterday I spent 2 hours on something other. But be aware of how much time you may be spending on your applications. So for example, myself, what I do is, in terms of using technology, as I said, I do a lot of work on digital well-being and mindfulness, and I just don't talk about it, I practice it. And sometimes what I do, and it's free, it's so easy to do, I go on long walks. I look at the blue sky, I look at the green leaves, and I go on walks. But I use technology in a balanced way. I put my headphones on, I use my mobile phone, and I listen to either podcast, meditation podcasts, or some kind of things that will get me to think about things as I'm walking. So I use technology, but I don't use that to kind of squander my time. So I'm out getting fitness just by walking. It's incredibly such an easy way to get fitness. But at the same time, I limit the amount of time I spend on my phone. So I know that if I go for an hour's walk, I've done that. I don't have to like start listening to other music and things. If I want to, I will do, but I don't spend other time because I've already spent some time, quality time, time that adds value to the way that I use my technology. In terms of spring cleaning, here I'm thinking about especially your mobile phone, your smart phone, your cell phone, whatever you call it in your regions. Thinking about spring cleaning. I'm not talking about going around your house cleaning your house, but of course thinking about your screen, because sometimes you could have screens full of different applications, and you're like, oh man, what should I? I'll click on this, I click on that. How about just choosing either a window or a selection of applications that you use more regularly, and the ones that you don't use so much, put them away somewhere else. The ones that are important to you, that adds value, that enables you to do something that's beneficial, keep them at the top level. So again, thinking about what and how you use your devices and what kind of notifications are produced, because sometimes you could be overwhelmed with notifications, and that in itself distracts you and takes your attention away. Okay, so these are the kind of things that you can do to be more in control of the way that you use your technology. So sleep is super important, as we've already said beforehand. It's really, really important that you create some space from your device at night. Most people have their charger right next door to them as they go to sleep on their bedside table, and that's fine. But you know what? Turn the telephone or mobile phone, smartphone off. Because you don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night with a reminder or a notification or text coming through. You want to get some quality sleep. You might want to put your device somewhere in another room to charge. I suppose that's one way of slowly starting off. But it's important that you're not tempted to scroll across different pages, because you're going to get your brain active instead of calming it down to go to sleep. You can use things like voice control or I go biking until which limits technology use. I suppose, yeah, that's an issue there too. Yeah, headphones might work. I mean, wireless headphones, but yeah, you could use your voice to control usage, and like Google Assistant, all those kind of things, and you could free yourself from typing in into devices and automate things. So, for example, you can ask Google to find to ring somebody up by saying call so and so, or find my direction to a certain location. But of course, don't forget, you can also, particularly if you're using an Android device, you can use the phrase, "Okay, Google, good night." Hopefully, it should switch it off. I hope it hasn't turned off your phones while I'm doing this talk here. And this thing about meditation. Now, in the past, there's loads of superpowers that people could have. And if I was doing a different session, I'd ask you what your superpower would be and things. But people have, in the last few years, have started saying that meditation is a superpower to have. And meditation, this is not a meditation session, this is more technology and the balance with technology. But you know what? Life is simple. We make it complicated. All these phrases that basically means by calming your mind down, you can be much more productive. And there are lots of apps available. I'm sure if you do a quick search on meditation apps, they'll pop up. There's also some apps that are built into some of the phones, smartphones nowadays. But the important thing is, again, be aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what benefits they are. Some people, I'm a meditation master, and some people say to me, well, how long do you meditate for? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 1 hour? That defeats the purpose. It's the quality, not the quantity. And it's really important, again, to try out these things so you're more in control over the technology that you use, so you're not overwhelmed by all the notifications that you're hitting you, and why you should be online and things like that. And these are the kind of things that we'll discuss in the next few slides. Please, please, please feel free to type in if you want to. So as I move on here, there's a couple of things to look out for. As I said, my questions: what's the most important time? Who's the most important person? What's the most important thing to do? Be present with other people, human beings in front of you, because not only do you get a quality and a higher level of communication with your relationships, it's better for everybody concerned. Now, you probably heard of fear of missing out. This is joy of missing out, and that's a gift in itself. Be happy that, if you don't need to react to somebody, if you don't need to respond to people, if you're making a conscious decision to interrupt other things instead of doing what you are in front of people, that almost gives you a feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment. And you know what? Sometimes it's a precious thing just to let your mind wonder, ponder, think. You don't have to be thinking about a particular solution to a particular problem. Sometimes not thinking produces a solution that you might not even thought about, excusing the pun. And again, that's why I said about going for walks in the open. Now, a couple of things that you can do at work. Of course, you could manage your notifications. It's really important to realize that if you're being notified every second, you might get into that bad habit or the wrong habit of thanks, Jan. Instead of thinking about always having to respond, well, you're a human being. You don't need to. And sometimes your productivity increases. But the important thing is, again, thinking about how you communicate that with people, because if people are not aware that you're not available, they don't know. So things like, well, putting your phone out of the way, that stops you from interacting with your notifications. Turning off notifications, of course, another way. But most people nowadays turn their phone other way around, upside down, or with their screen towards the table, so they're not always looking at the screen. Think about it. Whenever you go into a room, the first thing that you do is look at a screen. Even if the television screen, a computer screen, even if it's off, you always look at the screen. Why is that? Is that a habit that you form? And don't forget things like auto replies to emails, as well as out of office, OOO. So if you're in a meeting, if you're not available after 5 o'clock, let people know. So they're not, if there is a desperate reason to get in touch with you, they can have alternative ways of communicating. Right, I'm bringing this all together, people, and giving you a chance to ask some questions, so get some reflections, because quite clearly we've gone through lots of stuff today, and the important thing is, I hope the takeaway here is, what can you do practically to make a difference, as opposed to just having a list of things? So I'm just going to go through this matrix that I've got in front of you, just to go through to highlight the kind of things that we've been talking about. So again, think about, be aware of, observe your habits. Thinking about being aware again of your usage of your applications, and then doing something to declutter, get the kind of apps that you use most, and the other things, perhaps you may need it once in a while. If it's only once in a while, put it in the background. Put your devices to bed as you're going to bed. Let the device have some chance to go to sleep too. And then make technology work for you, as opposed to you being the slave. You should be the master of technology, or get that right balance. You could try to, again, calm your mind using meditation apps. But you know what? When you're with people, be with people. Don't think about answering this question, reacting to that email, thinking about the list that you have to make. Be with the people. And of course, enjoy the gift of not missing out. The joy of missing out. And then, again, just letting your mind think about something totally different, or just stop thinking. That's a different talk altogether, but you can stop thinking. And again, a part of my meditation and mindfulness. Notifications, as well as keeping your phone away from you, and then thinking about the times that you're not contactable. So out of office reminders, as well as our auto replies. Right, I'm just going to quickly go through this, because I'm not getting much interaction from you lot at the moment, but I'm going to save some time to later. Just a couple of examples to kind of bring this all together. You may have heard this phrase before. Every journey starts off with the first step. So take small steps and then change things around. If you try to think to yourself, right, I'm going to turn off all notifications, you might actually think to yourself, oh man, you might get overloaded with the kind of fear that you're missing out as opposed to the joy of missing out. So take small steps, and that makes a difference, changing your habits. And that makes it more sustainable, that you're more likely to carry on doing it. I'm going to ask you to think about writing down 3 tips and tools that you may use. I'm going to go through 3 tips and tools in a second, but just for yourself, so certainly after this session, just think about 3 tips and tools that will help you to achieve your balance and a goal. And remember, a goal, it doesn't need to be the end result. It's just where you want to go. So with that in mind, just to help you to generate these ideas after this session, breaking it down into things like this. We've got our friend here. She wants to have a higher efficiency at work. She wants to do better at work. The kind of things you can be thinking about is practice deep work when you're writing reports. So you're concentrating on the reports as opposed to thinking about the notification. That's you're writing away. And if a notification comes through or a text comes through to your phone, you get distracted, and then you're not thinking about finishing off the sentence or the paragraphs in that way. So when you're concentrating on something, concentrate on that. And again, this whole concept of concentration, nobody teaches us how to concentrate. As a father, mother, an elder, you tell children or younger people, concentrate, but you don't tell them how to concentrate. That is to just be aware of what you're doing at that present moment. And of course, using do not disturb on any of the notification helps you to be aware of what you're doing, and then the disturbances hopefully shouldn't be hitting you. And of course, you said be present with others, absolutely. And you know what? If you need to disconnect from our technology apps, do so. That may actually lead to a higher efficiency. Now, this person here, they want to spend more time with their family. Well, of course, as you've already mentioned, some of you have said, do be present, especially during mealtime. Mealtime is so precious. It's the one thing that all human beings, or all cultures, love doing. We love to be with people and eat. And you know what? I find it again quite disturbing when somebody pulls out their phone and they're not actually enjoying the food and the conversation because they're somewhere else. Be in the present moment. And of course, the joy of missing out. Man, I don't have to be connected all the time. And that in itself, you know, when you're going on holiday, that's partially what you do. If you go on holiday, just think about the fact that you're spending some time, putting time away from work. So if you're thinking about work and doing work, are you really on holiday? And then, of course, put some kind of guidance. There don't have to be strict rules, but, you know, look, everybody, at meal times, let's just turn our devices off and just talk, see where we go, that kind of thing. Again, small steps, but it makes a difference. And very quickly, if you want to, what you can do, people, in the last few moments, is if you want to share a commitment with the group, you can do. You don't have to, but certainly if you can, just write that down to yourself. In terms of the balance that you've got, think about what we've discussed during this session here. Be more aware of the triggers that create negative behaviors. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I've gone that because it's habitual, I've gone to my phone and I'm looking for certain things, break that. It's like another kind of analogy is if you brush your teeth from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, this evening, why don't you brush it from the other way around, right-hand side to left-hand side? Just by breaking that difference, you're looking at life in a different way. Reward yourself, give yourself something. It could be material, it could be spiritual, whatever it is, a reward for your good behaviors. Just pat yourself in the back if you wish. And of course, changing routine makes it more, adds more spice to life. And of course, each and every change you make is a celebration. You're going towards a certain path. As I said beforehand, every journey starts off with the first step. So what we've done today is we've gone through the kind of ideas around digital well-being. Digital well-being is all about how we interact with our technology and how we feel about it. And that's individual. We're all individual human beings and everybody will have a different take on that. The important thing is to be aware that you don't let technology take over you, that you have control over technology too. We're thinking about the right balance and then thinking about the tools that enable us to do that. And of course, forming habits, changing your behavior. That's the kind of thing that you can think about. So next time you think about, just pulling out the phone because the mobile phone, the smartphone, or the tablet, just think about, can you be doing something else that you didn't even think about? Is it intentionally that you're doing this, or is it subconsciously, unintentionally, that you just pull that out? For example, you're watching a film and you think to yourself, well, I think I'll just look up my posts and see if anybody likes them or disliking them. Is that actually benefiting you? Is that adding value to you? Or is that distracting you from watching your film that's so brilliant? So with that in mind, just to remind you about that feedback, if you have the time to provide us some feedback, that'd be wonderful. And again, that's the feedback form that you can use, or the feedback URL. And if you want to use the hashtag is at Google Digital Garage or Digital Garage. I'd like to say thank you very much for your attention. It's gone fast and furiously, and I hope you got something out of it. Also, like to thank Mohammed, who's been splendid in the background, but brilliantly doing the moderation. And again, thank you very much for your time. And remember, mind how you go. You lot take care. All the very best. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.